Alrighty, I'm with Zach Molzer. We are at the Holtman building.
We are at the Holtman building.
But let's talk about how you got started in development. Typically I'd give an intro, but everyone knows who you are and kind of what you're doing.
That's kind of the goal.
Exactly. But let's go back to the beginning and how you kind of found your way into development. Just give me kind of a quick timeline.
So born and raised here in Kansas City. I grew up in Lenexa and then went to college at the University of Nebraska. I went in as just a business management major, like most college kids, like not really knowing exactly what you want to do, but knew I wanted to do business, something, and always wanted to start my own company of some sort. My sophomore year, I moved into this really cool apartment building that this guy converted, and it was an old office building converted into apartments. There was nothing special about it. It was 16 lofts, just normal finishes, but I loved where I lived. Society has always said, as a renter, you shouldn't love where you live because it's just temporary. Go buy a home, live there forever. And the average American, that's where most of their net worth is tied into, is their home. I started diving into more research about our generation not wanting to buy a home. Not all of us, you can't speak to the greater population, but more than in previous generations, not wanting to own a home, wanting the flexibility of renting, because our generation can make money via their phone, via online, AI, creators, etc. So being able to be in Europe for 2 months at a time while still having your job, making money, they like the idea of renting. Couple that with the housing crisis of not having enough units, not having enough homes, the growing affordability problem. I was like, well, this just makes sense. Why can't I take this back to Kansas City and beyond? So added urban planning as a major. I then graduated, worked for a developer, owner-operator down in Tulsa. Had a blast, learned a lot, got to see a lot of deals full cycle through the whole stages and everything. Got to a point where I was like, hey, no time like the present. So I left in February of 24, started Molzer Development in March of 24. We bought the Aladdin we closed on that at the end of May of 24. And then right now we're sitting about 7 months or so out from the Aladdin being complete. We closed on the Holtman building in July of this year. This will be wrapped up sometime in May. Got a couple other projects that will break ground next year, but things are just chugging along.
Okay, so you were working for about 2 years. Is that kind of the timeline?
Yep.
I'm just curious how you, what did you learn in that job where you had sort of the knowledge to dive in just full? Yeah,
when you find your passion with something, it doesn't become a job. It just becomes like part of your lifestyle and your personality, and that's how it was with me when I first started working there. I got to do everything, which was great. It was just 2 brothers and myself, so everything from putting together the capital stack, helping raise funds, closing on all the loans, doing all that fun stuff, to then we self-GC'd everything, so did all the construction, and then also operating. So it was really throwing in the fire, figured out. I was down in Tulsa Monday through Friday every week, and then I'd drive back to Kansas City. Some weekends I'd stay down there. When I was down there, I just stayed at one of our projects. So we had an independent living facility that we were converting to apartments. Why would I go stay at a hotel? There's no point. We have a whole damn building that was vacant. A little spooky staying at an independent living facility that's vacant. Very spooky, I might add. But yeah, so you're just there. You're absorbing so much. You're asking so many questions. You're again, from the white collar stuff, dealing with the banks, to then being there with Wes Barbie, who was the GC down there that was in house. I mean, just with him 24/7, it was just a blast. You ask the right questions and you absorb a bunch of knowledge, and you can just learn. You can learn a lot faster. Couple that with, obviously, as I was working, listening to podcasts, reading books, doing things like that. I'll tell you what, though, I learned more the first 6 months of starting the Aladdin than I did any time in the past 22 years of my life, 1,000%. Because you learn most by doing things. When your balls are on the line and you have other people's money and all the risk in the world, couple that with your building in public where you have 15 million eyeballs a month looking at you, it lights a fire under your ass.
I want to get into the specifics of that, because like I said, so you have 2 years of learning. It's great. You're kind of in like a startup environment where you're doing everything that can teach you a bunch. But when you're in those first 6 months, I had to imagine that is where 90% of the learnings came.
It was insane. Yeah.
So talk me through that, what it's like. I guess, let's start with the timeline of the Aladdin. What was it like how'd you find it, first of all?
So the Aladdin got brought to me through an architect here in Kansas City. It was like, hey, so the Aladdin closed down in COVID, and every developer and their mother looked at that building from COVID until we acquired it to do similar things to. Pricing just wasn't the same as what we were able to negotiate and figure out. At the time when I got in touch with the owner via the architect, he was just done. He had owned the building since 2006. It was his only building that was offline. He owns a $2 billion portfolio of other hotels throughout the country. This was the only building that wasn't online, that COVID kind of broke the straw that broke the camel's back. He liked our vision, he liked our plan, he liked our mindset, and it was cool because he was an older gentleman and his son was taking over the company. If it was up to the older gentleman, Larry, he would have redeveloped the hotel and exactly what we're doing. So it's like exactly what we kind of want to do. He didn't have plans or anything like that, but he wanted to do something like that. Kind of like a going out passion project.
Right.
Well, his son was like, Dad, this is what we do. Like, we buy hotels, we renovate. Like, it's just, don't lose track of what we're doing. We're not doing that. So it really, I think, touched a little bit of a heartstring with him of like our ideas and plans of what we want to do in the building and do it right. So yeah, was able to put it under contract, negotiate a very advantageous price for both of us, and yeah, hit the pavement running. Had 30 days to go, raise $3 million, and that was fun.
Okay, so the timeline. We'll dive into the timeline of so you buy and then you raise. But I heard
Put
you
it under contract and then raise.
So I heard you in a podcast. You're talking about the Barding House Plaza.
Yeah, Barding House Plaza.
And how that you had some sort of information that you gathered.
I
from
did know that.
So, and then 24 hours later, you put in an offer.
Yes. So I had been looking at the Aladdin for, at that point, probably 3 months or so, and then I got a phone call from a good source of saying, hey, for people that aren't familiar, Barding House Plaza, they've been trying to find the funding for that for a decade. Like, that has been a project that people have been talking about for a decade here in Kansas City. So I got a phone call, hey, are you still looking at the Aladdin? I was like, yeah, I'm just, taking my time, doing my due diligence. They're like, I would probably, if you're going to buy it, I'd probably buy it sooner rather than later, because we go to our council meeting here in the next month, and we're going to approve the $95 million of funding that was missing. It's like, that's good to know. We were going to buy it regardless, don't get me wrong, but that was just like, all right, hurry the fuck up. So yeah, next day, called, put it under contract, and then had 30 days to go raise $3 million, myself and my two partners.
Let's talk about the raise. I guess walk me through the story of how you did that, but my overall question on raising the money, there's a ton of developers out there. Mm-hmm. Investors have tons of places to put their money.
Correct.
Why do you think they decided, I'm going to give you this specific sort of allotment of money?
There were 3 reasons on that front why. One, people invest in people. There are thousands of different deals you can invest in, whether it's ETFs, S&P 500, real estate deals, private equity deals, startups, the whole 9 yards. There's lots of different deals that people can throw money at. So the first part is people invest in people. They saw the passion, they saw that I was going to do whatever it takes to make it work, and I still stand by that, and that's the idea for every project, is rooted in passion and rooted in no fear of failure. So that's the first part. They saw that. Second part is we aligned incentives properly to make sure that not only are they making an investment, which any investment has a risk, in our opinion at first, and even still now, it is slowly going down, as the older and more deals that we do. But there was an additional risk for investing in a group of, when we closed the building, I was 23, my partner was 24, and his other partner was 25. So like, there's an added risk in a sense of, okay, you've got 3 kids in a sense running the show that get to make all the decisions. We accounted for that in the way of the ownership splits and things like that. The last was, everybody knew, when I say everybody, I mean the investors that we talked to, knew the deal that we were getting on the building was crazy. It was very good. In fact, the first question was there's a lot of questions normally people would ask. The first question was, what the fuck's wrong with it? And it was great because I had the keys to that building forever. The owner just gave them, he didn't care. He was like, if you want to buy this, do your due diligence, have fun. So I would say, great, lovely to ask that question. I want you to pause, don't ask any more questions, get in my car. And they're like, where are we going? I was like, we're going to the Aladdin. I was like, let's go look at it. They're like, really? I was like, yep, let's do it. Walking them through that building and again, talking about it from what we ended up buying it for, and getting to see how 80% of the room, the doors were locked, the beds were made, towels folded. Like, you could have put a couple $1 million in there and made it a Motel 5, probably. But it was de-risked from our standpoint of saying, hey, we're buying it for X. We know what's going on across the street. We know what's going on in Kansas City. We know all these things. We could turn around and flip that building immediately. And frankly, we had offers to flip it immediately and make very good money. There's a fun story about this gentleman that approached us wanting to buy the building a couple weeks after we closed. And I basically told him to go pound sand. I asked my investors, like, hey, I presented the offer to them. They're like, Zach, we knew what the building was worth versus what you bought it, what you guys were buying it for. Yeah. Like, we knew that. The whole point of this is let's go see this thing through because we know what it can be when it's done. But I remember then a couple months later, I get a text from one of my friends, and she said, hey, do you know this guy? I was like, kind of rings a bell. She goes, he fucking hates you. I was like, what do you mean? I was like, educate me. She's like, that was the guy that like wanted to buy the Aladdin from me. And he was like, yeah, this kid told me to go F myself, basically. I did not do that. I was just like, hey, we're not interested. He sent me an offer, and I was like, I'm good. He was like, no counter? I was like, no, it's not for sale. I'm like, anything's for sale, technically speaking, but I don't owe you a counter.
Right.
I should have countered at something stupid. But he told her, and she texted me, I could pull up the text, it's hilarious. She's like, I offered to make that kid $1 million in 30 days. He would have been a millionaire at 23 in 30 days, and he told me to go pound sand. It's like, yeah, I did. And my investors stood behind that, my partners and I stood behind that, and again, we made a lot of really good decisions with the Aladdin, but that was definitely one of them, of not butting down to letting, because I also knew their plans, what they were going to do with it. It was just stupid.
Right. Well, I think that speaks to your risk tolerance, which we'll get into.
Yeah, that and just confidence, and more importantly, at the end of the day, yes, it's about me, but it's not. It's the investors. They were like, no, we don't want. Don't take that. I mean, keep in mind, if 10 years down in my career, if that same opportunity happens, you know what I'm doing. I'm getting the hell out. I mean, I'd be stupid not to. But when we were pitching these investors, they knew that it was our first project, knew that the magnitude of it, knew everything. Like the whole picture was painted exactly what it was going to be. So they wanted to see that through.
Right.
They would rather, and I can't speak to this exactly, but a high level, the way that we raise the funds and the way that they're involved, they would have rather us lose their money than not see the project through. Good thing neither of those things are going to happen.
Right. Well, that sounds like you have great investors. Let's talk about historic buildings specifically. That's kind of what a lot of your content speaks to, the brand of the Aladdin Hotel. Is the historic nature of the building, is that something you want to focus on for a while? Is that just kind of happenstance?
So for both the Aladdin and the Holtman, it just kind of happened that way. I wasn't starting my development firm thinking, okay, historic tax credit, yada yada, do that. That's why I brought in Max and Hunter and Ben from Free Hill Capital, because Max worked at a large historic tax credit development firm for a couple of years. And I called him and said, hey, I'm going to buy this building. I'd love for you guys to come partner with me on it. I've done one historic tax credit deal, but not to the magnitude of this. It's like, you guys want to come down to Kansas City and help me with this? They were also starting their firm, things like that. So it made great sense for both of us. But it wasn't the plan of let's go buy old buildings. I've always been infatuated by them. I've always loved the history, huge history guy. So always loved that idea. But it just kind of happened that way. Going forward, yes, I will always try to have projects like this, like the Holtman, like the Aladdin going on. I don't want to say that's the prime focus. The focus is quality mixed-use development, infill development housing, attainable, sustainable housing. So we'll break ground on 50 townhomes in Overland Park next year. Those are ground up. There's no brick. They're not old. They're brand new. But again, this building's 108 years old. The Aladdin's 100 years old. So the opportunities for those buildings are great because they can be extremely lucrative if done correctly. You also simply can't build buildings like this anymore. It's just not feasible.
Right.
No amount of money would make it happen from the craftsmanship standpoint, the longevity and durability. Anything that we build today is not going to be around 100 years. Not everything, but most things will be gone.
Right.
Because it's just different. So we internally love the idea of these older buildings, these older projects, knowing that you have to do it right, and you're going to spend a lot more money than you would going ground up, but this building's going to be here for a long time, and I'll have less deferred maintenance and less problems, and therefore more cash in our pockets and better returns for investors.
You mentioned something interesting in one interview where you were talking about knowing exactly who the user is.
Yes.
Which is...
Exactly, to a T. We know that before we go in, before we even start the design, we know exactly who the Aladdin renter is going to be, and that is 22 to 26-year-olds that just graduated college, making less than $60,000 a year, that have a job downtown. They just got done being in a fraternity or sorority or living with a bunch of roommates. They're sick of it, so they want to live on their own. They don't want to live in their parents' basement, but they can't afford $2,000 a month in rent downtown. They also don't want to live in a shitbox, so your options are very limited in downtown Kansas City. The Aladdin is the opposite of that. It is one of the most amenitized buildings that there will be downtown, with the price point of half of all the other comps. So average rents there are about $1,500 a month. Again, some people, it's not affordable. Okay, whatever, it is in theory for a downtown. Affordable, I hate that word because it's all based on area and all that other stupid stuff, but it is extremely attainable for those types of people. So that's the exact audience for the Aladdin, and this one's completely different. This building is meant for those that host, people that are probably 35 to 50, 55 or so that love to host. Maybe they're empty nesters. Maybe they're selling their home in Leawood or Prairie Village because they want to take that equity and go and spend it. The great wealth transfers here, it's happening. People have a lot of money that they could pass down to their kids, and they might, but they want to spend it first. They've got more than they need. But they can't sacrifice going from a nice house in Leawood or Prairie Village or Mission Hills or Lee Summit to an apartment with apartment grade finishes. They can't swallow that. They still want space, and they still want some of their nice things like a gas stove or a big ass fridge or a wine cooler, like things like that that no apartments think of. And so that's what we're doing here. So we'll have 4 one-bedrooms that are about 1,000 square feet, a little over 1,000 square feet. Those are probably more towards the younger crowd of like the 30, 35, but still high rent. And then we have 4 units that are 3-bed, 3-bath, 2,400 square feet. They're huge. Every unit here will have heated bathroom floors. A bi-weekly maid service comes and is included in your rent. You'll have access to a members club. You'll get discounts at the bar. It's really the activation aspect of it, but it's creating a rental thesis that doesn't really exist here downtown, where there are people that are willing, they don't care what the rent is because they're coming from somewhere where they're paying $8,000, $9,000 a month in a mortgage, but they want to be able to pay $5,000, $6,000 a month to have a 3-bedroom bath here, but be able to lock the doors, throw the keys inside, and go to Europe for 3 months and not have to worry if the toilet breaks because it's on us. They're a renter.
I think that, well, this is like the idea of knowing exactly who your customer is, or knowing.
That's why we've framed all the units out there, right? But they're not done. We haven't started marketing. We haven't done anything. They're all leased. It's already done.
Well, you even use the term user, which the reason I'm bringing, it's like this is a tech idea that you're applying to the development
100%.
space, which I think one thing it clearly helps with is the decision making, where you can say, I want this kind of fridge, we need this, and it just makes all of the decisions probably easier.
100%.
Right?
I mean, time is money, and time kills deals in development and pretty much anything you do in life. And so if you can make those decisions faster because you know exactly what it needs to be, you can know pricing quicker, you can get things ordered faster, it helps. So like, yeah, the units here, every unit has a 12-foot island. I don't think people comprehend how large a 12-foot island is. That's not normal. 99% of homes in Kansas City, even the nice millionaire homes, do not have a 12-foot island. All the sinks are 4-foot base sinks. The fridges are 4.5 feet wide. The stoves are all six burner gas stove tops. Again, all the showers have 3 shower heads. You have a rainfall, you have a front, and then you have a wand. That's just stupid. No one does that in rentals. We are here. Now, could we build 100 lofts like that, and would that work here in Kansas City? I don't think so. I would love to do more projects exactly like this one, where it's anchored by office and retail, a rooftop bar, or some other concept, and then you have lofts, because then it complements each other. But I think a max volume of units at a time that you could turn online, similar to what these will be, is probably in the range of 12 to 16 of very high-end rentals. But that's been the pitch from day one for this project. I don't want to hear anyone complaining about affordability. Frankly, these are the opposite of affordable, because we want more people living downtown and spending their money downtown that have disturbing disposable income. We need more people downtown that are paying $6,000 a month in rent, that are fine going to Farina and dropping $3,000 on a dinner with their friends. Like, we need more people like that down here. We also need more people that are younger, that are going to live at the Aladdin, that are 22 to 26, that maybe they're not spending as much money downtown, but they're employed downtown. The sales tax revenue is coming downtown, all of that, and keeping employers and jobs here.
So being this involved, you also mentioned you're super involved in sort of every decision, and you work heavily with the GC, and you said probably more than some GCs.
Correct. Some might not like that.
Right. I'm curious how you, as the company scales, have you thought about, like, how do you keep that same intentionality of, I'm building this for the exact person I want to build it for? If you have a massive company, how do you kind of
100%. Ideally, and it's not in the plan for the next year or so, because we won't be big enough and won't have a need to it yet. But yeah, bringing on a project manager that's in-house, an owner's rep that is me, but not me, right? Ideally, it gets to a point where things are automated, where I can't be on the job site every day. I can't, when I have 5, 6, 7 projects going on at a time, hopefully in a couple of years, I can't be everywhere. I'm not Houdini. But if someone can be there as though they're a Zach and know exactly how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, where at the end of the day, the only time they come back to me is when there's a problem that they can't solve, that they actually need me to sign off on it, or something that I have to pick or choose. But them knowing, like, hey, going into a project, you already kind of know exactly the vibe of what it's going to be, what decisions need to be there, how I want things done, and all of that. Then the only time that they have to come to me is to actually make those decisions or sign off on something. Because that's how you create a true flow,
Right.
and that's how you grow and scale a company. I know I can't be everywhere at all times, but that's the point. Right now, I'm fortunate, and I like to be there. I can be there at all times as much as I possibly can, without it disturbing new deal flow and things like that. But no, there'll be a point where you have to delegate. And I think that's a problem that a lot of entrepreneurs and founders run into, is they don't like giving up control, even if it's internal control. Even if it's not necessarily giving up control to a third party, it's still within your team. But a lot of founders and CEOs have a hard time being like, oh, but I really like to do that part.
Right.
Great. If you want to go and build something great, and what we want to build is something great, then I'm going to have to delegate and have to give up some control internally.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that touches kind of on another topic of your team that you put together. Talk a little bit about how you kind of found them, and then I'm curious how, when you're in this stage of a development company where you're still building up those first few projects, how are you like finding the funds to pay them? Where does that come from?
Yeah,
I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, that's fun. So a high level, when you do development projects, you have a development fee. You'll have maybe a construction management fee depending on things. So with the Aladdin, the way we structured things was smart. Us knowing, hey, myself, my partners, we were young. We had just started the development company. We don't have any funds coming in. We structured, and investors know this, and this was part of the pitch, was we're going to structure our development fee where some of it, not all of it, but some of it, and the lender had to be on board with all this too. Some of it is paid upfront, but it's paid monthly, so it acts as a salary for us. That way we can eat. No investor would give us money if we didn't have a shelter over our head to be able to execute on the vision. You know what I mean? So it coincides. Like, sure, are they spending a little bit extra money, but every development project has fees. We just took part of it up front, which in theory hurts us because we could have had a higher fee on the back end. But again, going back to aligning your incentives and aligning things with investors was important. So that's how we bring in like $7,000 a month. Molzer Development does. My overhead's $20,000 a month. From there, you have other miscellaneous things, like on the Holtman building, we had a small acquisition fee. That was $75,000. That's the only fee that we're gonna have on the entire project. We have no development fee. We have nothing of that sort. So that 75, that can get us through a little bit. I joked with Annie and Colin in October, and I was dead ass serious. I was like, hey, like we're good right now until January, and then we're fucked. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, come January, technically speaking, I can't make payroll. I was like, just can't do it. There are different ways to grow and scale a development company, and any company in that matter, and I would caution people about bringing on people on a payroll or on a salary too early. I didn't take that advice, but I knew why, but I knew that there'd be other benefits. Frankly, part of the only reason that we're able to function right now until these projects actually get done, and then life becomes great, because then more fees come in, then your cash flow, all that fun stuff, is through our collaborations and stuff through social media, which has been great. We knew it was going to come. It was just a matter of timing, and we hit the timing pretty damn spot on, which was great.
I mean, that's what I was going to say. Now you have these brand deals coming in, and it's like the investment you made with Annie is
already
clearly
paid back.
Exactly. It's fantastic.
Completely.
I'm curious, what does your day-to-day look like?
Every day is completely different. Everyone always asks me that question, and I always normally just pull up my calendar, and it's like, every day is totally different. That's why Annie and Anna were like, hey, you have to make a day in the life video. I was like, okay, but like this day in the life is like different than the next day. Like every day is totally different. I was telling, who asked me this? Someone asked me this yesterday. I was like, there are only 3 things that are in my calendar that are set every week. Everything else is just chaos. I have our Molzer Development weekly team meeting Mondays at 9 a.m. That runs till about 10:30, depending on the week. And then I have an Aladdin OAC, an owner architect contract meeting at 9:30 on Tuesdays. And I have a Holtman OAC meeting at 11 a.m. on Tuesdays. That's it. Everything else is something, whether that be a podcast, whether that be we film probably 2 to 3 hours a week, whether that be the miscellaneous meetings with our architects, with our contractors, whether I'm at the Aladdin, whether that be meeting with investors, talking with lenders, walking through different projects, different buildings, meeting with brokers at a happy hour, on phone with the lender, approving bank draws, underwriting a new deal, dealing with our bank draws, working with insurance. Like there's so many different areas of things that come up, because at the end of the day, at development, you're at the top of the food chain. You're in a sense employing the general contractor that employs all of the subs. You're employing the architect that has all of the other MEPs, so the MEP sub, the structural engineer, acoustical engineer, all of that. You're at the top of the food chain. They can solve their problems as much as they can internally, but at the end of the day, the yes or no, or the approval or the decision, it goes back to you. You ideally have a good enough team that they can figure out as much as they possibly can without having to go to you, or they only have to go to you once or twice a week, whatever that may be. But they still got to go to you, right? So like I've been tuning it down in terms of like having not as many miscellaneous meetings or random meetings, because time is money, right? And if I'm spending time doing things that aren't of value to myself or our firm, then it could be better used elsewhere.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about how the first 6 months of this process you learned the most. Let's dive into that a little bit more. What has it been like? Is there an example, I guess, where something came, I'm sure it happens every single day, but something came up and you're like, I have no idea how to do that, I need to figure it out. And the burden that creates when you've got $30 million sitting on the line for that.
I got a few of them. Gosh, let me think which one's the best one. The generator one was pretty interesting. So we knew that there was a generator in the back of the alley of the Aladdin that was there, that was installed in 2020 from Hotel Kansas City. Well, the timing of that, why they put it there, was a temporary generator because they were going to build this office tower. COVID happened, no office tower, whatever. Well, that just got lost in the weeds with the city and everything. Well, this come October of 24, we were getting ready to start demolition on the building, the interior parts that were non-historic. Well, the only way for us to get materials in and out was through that alley, which is a public alley. Well, you can't, there's a generator there. So I remember calling the city, I was like, hey, I need you guys to move that generator. I didn't know whose generator was.
Right.
I assumed it was the city's because it's a public fucking alley. Pretty novel concept. It's not. Like, oh, we don't have a generator there. I'm like, you do. I mean, I'm looking at it. Like, we don't have a generator there. I was like, okay, come out. Took 2 weeks to get the city to come out to go look at it. Sure enough, they walled down and they're like, oh, wow, that is a generator. I'm like, yeah, I need it moved. Like, well, it's not ours. I'm like, okay, well, it's got to be theirs then. That process to get that generator moved took about 9 months to get moved. How do you move a generator? A lot harder than you probably think. You can't just like pick it up and move it because it's for your emergency power systems. So navigating all that, even though it wasn't our generator or our problem, it was our problem, right? Because if we are delayed, then that dramatically affects us. That's just one example of a trillion different things that come up where it's like, and that's what Colin's been able to learn over the past year or two of like, there are so many things and situations where someone will tell you, hey, you have to do this, or hey, go through this process. And he'll look at me like, hey, like, can you help me with this? I'm like, I don't know how to do that. And we'll kind of look at each other and be like, all right. And you know what that means? You figure it out.
Exactly.
You go and figure it out. Yep. Like Colin's never gone through a bond closing for a tax abatement. I had, but I figured that one out, right? So I wanted him to go through this one. I would help him along the way, but I pretty much like, let me know if you have any questions. I know how to do this, but I want you to learn how to do this because then the next time it will go by a lot faster because I know that we can do it faster. But then again, the only time I have to be there, going back to the delegating thing, is when it's ready, we're all ready and set up and buttoned, ready to go, bring me the docs and I will sign them because I'm the only one that can sign them. And that was pretty much my role on that process of the bond closing. That's great. Teaches him how to close on bonds, the overarching thing, the structures, the miscellaneous things. And the other fun part, at the end of the day, no one knows what they're doing. Okay, who's a better bullshitter and who has better people and a better system and a better team in place to make sure that you're not doing things completely wrong, right? You have a good attorney, okay, make sure things are not completely wrong. But at the end of the day, even those attorneys have no idea what they're doing,
right?
As it pertains to most things. So like it's all just a balance game. You just have to have confidence in yourself. Again, the right team and the right partners behind you that trust in your ability to figure things out. But yeah, development is literally that. I say it's herding cats. There's problems every single day. And that's why I always reiterate to my team members. And I think the hardest part about going from development into like a home life is I'm constantly solving other people's problems. So when I go home, I don't want to solve anyone's problems. I'm like, nope, that's not my problem. Or vice versa. I want to solve other problems. And it's like, well, I didn't ask you to help me solve my problem. I just want to vent. I'm like, well, no one vents to Zach. You don't get a vent to me because if you vent to me, I'm gonna tell you how to solve it. That's just how my brain operates.
I'm sure that's great for relationships.
Yeah, it's been great with my girlfriend for 7 years. Love her to death. But yeah, it's definitely a learning curve. Just like understanding how my brain operates, how hers operates, how other people, how they flow and function. I mean, the first 3 months of having Annie on board, she probably wanted to kill me every day because we're just so different.
Right.
Look, fast forward now, and half the things I say that used to make her mad or things, it just goes in and out, we run the other. And you're just like, all right, that's Zach.
I think this is with starting a business, we talked about risk earlier, why you're risk on. Being risk on at this age.
Strategic risk though. I mean, there's gonna be risk in anything
Certainly.
you do. There's risk in starting a company, there's risk in development, there's risks on whether if you do a duplex project versus you do a $38 million store tax credit project. There's risk in anything you do. It's just what level of risk and what level of comfortability the people around you and supporters have, right?
Well, and then it's also like every time you come up against a situation where you don't know what the hell to do. You figure it out, and now you've just added on something for the next
Exactly.
time. So it's like what's the worst risk? You learn something. At the end of the day, that's really not risk.
Maybe not the worst risk. The worst risk is you lose money or something like that, or time. But yes, in theory, yeah. I mean, it's you are going to learn something, even if you do one of those two things.
I'm curious, what keeps you up at night when you've got all this shit going
everything.
on? What's the, I guess, and maybe if you don't want to answer, it's fine.
I think the biggest thing, it's nothing project specific. Like Holtman, I'm fine. I'm not worried about budget, timeline, nothing here. Same thing with Aladdin. I think lease up is going to murder it. I think we will be 100% pre-lease before the doors open. Obviously, this place already is leased. Like nothing to that magnitude. It's more so like, how can I be more efficient with my time? How can we strategically grow, do more projects without overloading ourselves? How can we build out our team to be better, but again, methodically? I think the biggest problem that I have, like why I don't sleep a lot at night, is because I sometimes have to reel it back in and be like, you are 24, you have lots of time. But I have all these ideas and I know that we can execute on a lot of them, so it's hard to sometimes bring it back. You don't want to bring it back too much because you don't want to lose sight of what the end goal is. Right. But I can't do everything. It's not possible. So being very strategic about the opportunities that we do decide to pursue, the deals that we do look at, the deals that we want to pursue, the other ventures and companies and stuff that we want to start, the philanthropic things that we want to do. It's, hey, we've got time. You know, we're ahead of the curve. If we stay on the path we're on right now, I was doing the math the other day, we'll be like a $8 billion company in the next 30 years. That's disgusting. That's if we just continue doing what we're doing right now, which is in a sense like one project every 9 months. That's pretty cool.
I'm curious, do you ever still feel like you're behind?
Oh, hell yeah. Are you kidding me?
Which I think is crazy because like you said, you're 24. If you keep on
the other part is like, it's hard for me to like realize that I am 24. Like I don't ever think of it like that because I mean, God, dude, the Aladdin aged me. My Whoop says I'm 34. Like I will show you. Do you have a Whoop? Do you wear Whoops?
He's a big Whoop guy over there.
Look at this. How do I go to 33?
33.3.
I work out. I eat halfway decent. Whenever I'm on a call, I like to walk around just because I get 10,000 steps. It's just literally, if you go down, it shows stress because my stress meter is just. But I don't feel stressed. But my Whoop thinks I am, which I guess it knows. Yeah, I'm like 33.
But there's also an interesting.
I also hang out with like most of the people I hang out outside of like my team of Annie and Colin and Anna and John. Like outside of that, I would say 85, and then outside of my personal life, like with my girlfriend and all that. Outside of that, 85 and 90% of my time is spent with people over the age of 45, 100%. Because you are who your network is, and I want to be around people that are doing things like how I'm doing it. Then realizing that I'm 20 years ahead in a sense, I've got time. But they have a lot of good, valuable lessons. Whether there's some lessons that I learned from them that I like to take, or some that I'm like, that's a lesson that's stupid, but I'm not going to use that. Surrounding yourself with those people is huge. That's the biggest life advantage ever.
I'm curious.
Is to be comfortable with older people.
Have you ever, and I think there's probably a ton of people online and in the comments who are like this 24-year-old, and they're talking about your age all the time.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in actual meetings talking with people where they bring up your age?
No.
Or is right?
And that's what's funny. Some of the like. When a lot of people, like I say more sophisticated, people have been in the industry a while, like their normal questions for me is like, okay, well, how did you go get a loan? Well, we find some help with guarantors. We network and we go meet people that we give up equity to in order to help sign on debt, but they're not at those meetings, we are. And the banks don't give you a term sheet with the personal financial statement stuff. They give you that beforehand. And it's funny, people would assume, oh, well, you're going to those meetings, I would imagine the lender's first question is like, how are you able to do this, yada, or you're young, like yada, yada. No, they weren't. We actually haven't had a single lender ever mention our age because we came well prepared with every sort of question they could possibly want answered to, proof in the pudding, ready to go, wrapped with a bow. I mean, we've gotten comments and stuff and feedback from like, I've never had so much information given to us for a project before, like, thank you, we won't even need half of this, but this is awesome. It's like, we want to bridge that gap. We internally know that we're young. I don't want that to be a topic of conversation or to be a barrier as to why we can't do something. Age is just a number.
Right.
Anybody that says different, they can fuck themselves. Because we can do anything.
100%.
Maybe not anything, but most things.
Pretty close.
You can pretty much do anything.
Talk about that a little bit. Where do you think that attitude comes from? Why, like, actually, why do you think you feel that you can just do things?
You can. I mean, you don't need to ask permission to go do something. No one's going to tap you on the shoulder and be like, hey, now's your time to go do something. You just have to do it. I think that just comes from like me wanting to build a real legacy. You know, people ask what my why is. Like, sure, would it be nice to have a plane? Yeah, it'd be cool. But like, that's not why I'm doing this. I don't need a big fancy house. I don't need any nice things. I want to be able to go to a restaurant and eat what I want, have a good glass of bourbon, and be a good husband and be a good father. That's what I want. But what is pushing me to be even better is when you think about the 5 most prominent people in Kansas City, like ever, you know, you think Pendergast, you think probably the Coffin family, the Hunts. I want to be on that list when I die, and that's important to me. And I want to take the thesis of what we're building here just in Kansas City and take it elsewhere. But from a Kansas City standpoint, I want that's the goal. Like what that entails, no idea. Is that a money number? No. Is that I don't know what that entails, but I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure I get there, or at least have a chance of getting there.
I've
be on that list.
100%, and I've listened to some of the. You were talking about kind of the 10-year plan. How much of the motivation, like, have you had the thought in your mind of 30 years from now, when you're at that $8 billion mark, flying over in a helicopter, or just seeing a massive plot of land and being like, I built that, and just having
100%. I mean,
how much of that is the motivation?
You can't have too much ego when it comes to development and real estate, because if you have too much ego, then you have too much passion's not the right word. Not control. What's the word I'm looking for? Attachment. You can't be attached. At the end of the day, it's a building.
Yep.
It's cool. It's a cash flowing building. That's great, but you can't be attached to it. If someone comes to you and offers a price, like I always tell people, I will never sell the Aladdin. You have to push me off the top to sell it. That is 99% true. However, my dad always taught me everything is for sale. There is a number in which that the Aladdin we would sell it for. We would have to. It would make total sense. But at the end of the day, even if we did ever sell it, I'm always gonna be like, yeah, look at that. And everyone will. The Aladdin. What's so cool about that project, the way we framed it and the way that we've pushed it, and in Kansas City and beyond, I don't care if we sold the building in a year from now. The Aladdin will always be attached to Zach Molzer. Always. It just will. And that was very intentional, because that's a pretty big project and a very iconic building. There's no building like it. It's not like you can, that looks similar to that building. Like the Holtman, it's a big brick building. It's cool. Right. There's a lot of buildings in the Crossroads that look very similar that someone could mistake. You cannot mistake a 42-foot wide, 16-story building that has a blue roof. You just can't mistake that. And so that's pretty cool. To be always, like, I tell our team, Molzer development truly starts when that building opens up, because then it's not we're doing it, it's we did it. Holy cow. Now comes opportunities out the floodgates, not just here in Kansas City, but beyond for, hey, I saw you guys complete this big project. I'd love to have your help consulting, or hey, come partner with me on this project. Or investors going, damn, all right. Again, even from the city standpoint of, I remember the first 8 months of dealing with the city, it was kind of like they were, okay, more hesitant. I get it, like I get why. Yeah. Then we hosted a wall breaking ceremony with 300 people, and it was 20 degrees up there in the ballroom. And it was, wow, this was the largest private development project, like conglomerate of a wall breaking, groundbreaking ceremony ever. Maybe they are going to do this thing. And that was a kind of pivotal moment for us, which is crazy that what day is today? 21st, 22nd, 20th? I don't know.
Today?
January 22nd was the wall breaking last year. And that is the moment that things shifted with that project, where that's when we started building in public. That's when we started showing everything and documenting it, building our story online, all that fun stuff, because that was like the official kickoff moment. Let's roll. It's absolutely insane to think where we were then to where we are now. It's actually crazy now that I really think about it.
We'll end on that point of, like, the podcast here is called American Builders, right? And I just want to end on the topic of the value that you have when you can you're creating material change in the physical world.
Yeah.
And like you said, the legacy that leaves, and the ability to look at that for forever and see the impact.
Yeah, even if you sell it, even if you do whatever. But I mean, even every day driving up to the building, getting on I-35 and driving up and seeing it's like, that's pretty cool. Or the idea of when a Chiefs game is on, to them have the flyover, and it's like, we did that. I heard doing that. Like that's pretty cool. And that goes back even to the investor standpoint. A lot of them like that too. Like, as a developer and as the owner, you need to take as much of the pride and ego and the attachment of it as possible as away. You're gonna have some. I'm attached to the Aladdin, 100%. It's part of my personality. Are you kidding me? But the investors, they also love it too. They're like, I mean, they brag to their friends of like, yeah, you know, I'm a part owner in that thing, and you know, get to watch the story online, or they'll reach out and be like, dude, you're everywhere. People literally come up to me and like, will be like, hey, have you met with this kid yet? And they're like, I'm actually an investor in one of his projects, and it's like, that's just cool. It's really powerful. It's really powerful.
Well, thanks for coming on.
100%. This was awesome, man.
Absolutely.
I appreciate
We'll see you guys later.
Godspeed.